The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
We got a big one in primetime Thursday nighter, 3-1 49ers, 3-1 Rams.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. I'm gonna wait to talk about the San Francisco 49ers injuries, and they are numerous. The injury report a little bit shorter for the Los Angeles Rams. So what is the big storyline right now for the Rams coming into week 5?
Yeah, I think there's a couple, Brian. I think that, on the offensive side, it's can you get Matthew Stafford going quicker? Can you get him going without, the pressure of the last 2 minutes of the first half, or the pressure of a touchdown deficit midway through the fourth quarter? Because when there's been some pressure on him, he's been really, really good. When there has not, when it's been, relatively smooth sailing, he hasn't been particularly good. Now, I know that's the benefit of having a veteran quarterback, is when you got to have it, he seems to be able to find a way to get it done. But he has been pretty inconsistent. I don't think the numbers really reflect how up and down he's been. The numbers look pretty good, but his performance has been a little spotty. On the other side, it's the back end of that defense. It's the secondary. They really struggled against the Eagles in the second half a couple of weeks ago. They struggled, I thought, too, against Indianapolis last week. And if not for kind of a boneheaded play by Mitchell dropping the ball going across the goal line there, the Rams probably lose that game because they couldn't cover in the back end. Now, they can mitigate some of that stuff by getting home, which they've been really good at doing. Byron Young leads the entire league in sacks with 5, and Jared Verse is heating up, which is not a big surprise. It was just a matter of time until he starts to do what he does. But I think those are the two big ones, one on each side of the ball, coming into the game on Thursday against the Niners.
Well, the good news for the Rams is they might not have anybody to take advantage of that, or the Rams secondary, because the 49ers have a ton of injuries. And Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings among them at wide receiver. We might have a familiar guy who has all of one catch so far on this season, in DeMarcus Robinson, a familiar player to Rams fans, might be out there in the number one starting wide receiver for the 49ers in this one on Thursday. And I actually expected him to be on the field a little bit more in week 4 after his 3-game suspension. But as of Wednesday, as we record this, Travis, not only do we not know if it's going to be Ricky Pearsall or Juwan Jennings able to go out there and play, we don't even know who's throwing the football. Right. I mean, I can't remember a time when it was like you're sitting here and no idea if it's going to be Brock Purdy or Mac Jones playing in this game tomorrow. I think it's looking like leaning in the direction of Mac Jones being the player. The 49ers had both Brock Purdy and Mac Jones speaking to the media yesterday, and he's usually the starting quarterback that speaks to the media. I think Kyle Shanahan probably doesn't know himself, or prefers the Rams don't know, even if he does know. So that's part of it as well. Brock Purdy on the injury report, and look, it's just kind of walkthroughs for the most part anyway on a short week like this. So not a lot of practicing happening for the guys who are practicing. Brock Purdy didn't practice early in the week, and Mac Jones did practice. Jones was more hurt, according to Kyle Shanahan, last week with a sprained PCL injury. Now it is, after aggravating his toe injury, Brock Purdy more hurt than Mac Jones coming into week 5, which to me tells me it's most likely going to be Mac Jones throwing to Kendrick Bourne and DeMarcus Robinson on Thursday night, but there still is a chance for some other guys to be ready and play. And, still no George Kittle, who's on IR as well. So,
yeah,
the leading receiver for the San Francisco 49ers is coming out of the backfield, and that is Christian McCaffrey, who's touched the ball more than any player in the NFL this year. Even though the 49ers aren't running the ball as well as they usually do, he's still been a weapon in the passing game, and on pace to set 49ers records for how often he's touched the football. So I would expect a lot of Christian McCaffrey, which any team does when they come to the 49ers anyway.
Yeah, no, well, not that the Rams are unique in this particular department, but they do not have anybody that matches up particularly well with Christian McCaffrey. Now, I guess the good news is neither does anybody else. That's why he's Christian McCaffrey. He's a tough cover no matter what, but that's something that they have really struggled with. Now, they've been really good against the run this year. That is something that they improved a great deal from a year ago. It's, you go back to last year, and the thing that they could not get figured out was how to deal with Saquon Barkley, right? Saquon Barkley killed them in the regular season. Saquon Barkley killed them in the postseason. And then a couple of weeks ago, they did a really good job on Saquon. Last week, they did a really good job on Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, you get another test coming up this week with McCaffrey. And then next week, they go to Baltimore and have to deal with Derrick Henry. So they get 4 guys in a row that are monsters out of the backfield. But one of the least talked about acquisitions that they had during the offseason last year was Poona Ford. And he has changed a lot in the middle of that defensive line. Like, the Rams are really good at getting home and rushing the quarterback, guys like Young, Verse, Fisk, and whatnot. But Ford has been terrific dealing with that run. So I think if they can continue to do that, then, if McCaffrey is the weapon, if that's the leading receiver coming into this game, you try to make him work for everything he gets. But I am optimistic that they've been really good against the run this year, and Ford has been a huge part of that.
Yeah, the 49ers defensive front could use a Poona Ford. That was a phenomenal addition to that Rams front. You brought up Saquon Barkley too, and here's a great stat for you. And it illustrates where the 49ers are right now with the blocking up front, even before you start talking about whether or not Christian McCaffrey's lost a step with some of the injuries he's had going into that area of running backs' careers where they do start to fall off the map many times in their late 20s. But he's still a very good football player, clearly. But last week, 17 carries for 49 yards, which is 2.9 yards per carry. It's not very good, right? And on top of that, 48 of his 49 rushing yards came after contact. So by my math, that's all of 1 yard that was blocked for Christian McCaffrey before he was contacted by defenders.
Yeah.
And last year, one of the most insane stats for Saquon Barkley, and look, Saquon Barkley can do a lot on his own. Saquon Barkley last year for the Eagles had 1,000 yards before contact on the season.
Great.
So 1,000 of his rushing yards, he never had to even deal with a defender yet. And so that tells you what's going on up front for the San Francisco 49ers. Them not being able to run the ball isn't necessarily a Christian McCaffrey problem right now. And so Kyle Shanahan needs to go back to the drawing board. They need to figure this thing out on the offensive line, and they need to get that going, because when's the last time a Kyle Shanahan offense couldn't run the football? I can't think of one.
Yeah, no, that's been the Niners and the Rams, obviously, going back doing the McVay era, going to the Shanahan era. It feels like it's kind of started to swing back a little bit towards the Rams. Like, the Niners were just beating them, over and over and over again, obviously with the notable exception of that NFC Championship game. But last year, it felt like it kind of started to swing back the other way. And if they can take advantage of that offensive line like you're talking about, and limit the ability of McCaffrey to kill them on the ground, which he's done. Like, he's killed them over and over again. You mentioned Kittle too. That's another guy that the Rams had no answer for years and years and years. So, as far as the timing goes, you got to get a little lucky with the scheduling of when you play, who and who's available in those moments. And at least as the injury report goes, the Rams might have a little bit of an advantage coming into this one, just simply because they're a little bit healthier at those spots.
Yeah, and that's why the Rams are favored right now in this football game, and they haven't been favored a lot against the 49ers in recent history. And by the way, you said Ravens next week for the Rams?
Yeah, Ravens next week. Yeah,
nice scheduling. You get no Lamar likely next week either.
Yeah, look, they said you gotta be good, but you gotta be lucky too, Brian. Right? Then the schedule needs to work out for you. So fingers crossed. Yeah, hopefully Lamar gets nice and healthy the week after the Rams come to town.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
The Seahawks and Buccaneers getting ready to clash in their 1976 threads.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We are gearing up for a pivotal matchup at Lumen Field. 2 3-1 teams, the NFC South leading Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the 3-1 Seahawks, who technically are in second place, but they are tied for first place in the crowded NFC West. A special thanks to all of our listeners, whether you're out in Seattle or you're listening in from Tampa Bay. Thanks for making Locked On Bucs and Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. We're going to be deep diving into everything you need to know from this upcoming game. Injuries on both sides, particularly for Tampa Bay heading into this matchup. And speaking of matchups, a lot of Ohio State flavor in this game coming up between the Seahawks and Bucs. And we'll look at what each team's got to do to get that fourth victory in their first 5 games. All this coming your way courtesy of Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. James, it's interesting because if you remember the quote from Bill Parcells, you are what your record says you are. And yet in the case of the Tampa Bay Bucs, it has been hard to get to 3-1. They have been trailing in every game in the fourth quarter, but they found a way to win almost all of those games. Did lose for the first time last week against Philadelphia. And I think it is a testament to what Baker Mayfield does, what the magic is he brings under center, because the injuries he has had, particularly on offense, around him. And unfortunately for Tampa Bay, in their white creamsicle threads this weekend, it looks like they're going to be missing at least one more key player on offense as the injuries just keep piling up.
Yeah, I mean, the Bucs could as easily be 4-0 as 0-4 at this point in the year. But, you know, that's what good teams do, right? They find a way to win football games. And last week you spot the Eagles 14 points and just kind of run out of time at the end because they certainly made it a lot more interesting than people expected. But yeah, the injuries just don't ever seem to stop. We already knew that the Bucs were going to be without Kalijah Kancey. He's out for the rest of the year. He got injured in week 2, but they're without Mike Evans. They're without starting right tackle Luke Gedeke. But here are the players who, as of right now, have their status up in the air as to whether or not they're going to be playing in Seattle. Jamel Dean, Benjamin Morrison, Greg Gaines, Hassan Reddick, Bucky Irving, and Christian Izien. So they went through a walkthrough practice. Todd Bowles said that he felt like they would have more guys sitting out than actually participating had they not done the walkthrough. But Bucky Irving was seen in a walking boot and crutches, but not ruled out yet. Bowles said they're going to wait until Friday to see if he gets out of the boot. It seems borderline precautionary, but we're not really sure what the actual injury is. If I had to guess, if you go back to see that play where Bucky fumbled, even though I still don't think it was a fumble, the way his ankle bent underneath the defender, it twisted pretty awkwardly. You could be looking at a high ankle sprain. But again, we have, as of right now, no word as to what that injury is. But Benjamin Morrison missed almost all of training camp with a hamstring injury. He tweaked that. Jamel Dean playing at an all-pro level through the first 4 weeks. He's dealing with a hip/groin injury. Greg Gaines, who replaced Kalijah Kancey, he's dealing with a pec injury. It's just never ending for this Bucs team.
Yeah, a ton of injuries. And Cody Mock also was another one that you didn't mention being out for the season as well. So the offensive line's got 2 key pieces that are not going to be available. And it's funny because the Seahawks were in a somewhat similar situation only a few weeks ago. It just felt like, who's going to play corner and safety for this team? They were calling guys off of the street. They were bringing players up from the practice squad, and yet they didn't seem to miss a beat when they were putting the DeAnthony Bells and Tyakatas of the world into the lineup. They continued to play at a high level. They continued to get the job done back there. And now, because of the mini buy-in, look, I'm being brutally honest here. I can't remember the last time that the Seahawks were the team coming into a game like this that had the 3 days extra rest. It's usually the other way around. They have that 10-day, that mini buy after that Thursday night win over the Cardinals. And Nick Emanwari, their standout rookie safety, who's been out since like the fourth play of the season opener with a high ankle sprain, it sounds like there's optimism that he could be ready. We don't know if he's playing this weekend or not, but Seattle got Julian Love and Devin Witherspoon back last week. Those guys are going to be good to go. And they've got a couple other players on the front line that were banged up. DeMarcus Lawrence, we'll see if he's ready to play in this game. He had a thigh injury exited with last Thursday. But generally speaking, this is a team that is much healthier than what they were a few weeks ago. So kind of the polar opposite from Tampa Bay. And they're riding a wave of momentum. And the game on Thursday night, everybody's going to look at the 14-point deficit that the Cardinals erased at the end of the game, and they're going to say, ooh, Seattle got lucky there, whatever. Divisional games are just crazy, and Seattle still dominated 85% of that game. The week before just murdered the Saints, who, oh, by the way, have been extremely competitive in all three of their other games, and Seattle just ran them out of Lumen Field. It was 21-0 like 3 minutes into the game. And then the week before that, and Pittsburgh's 3-1. The only game that they have looked bad was when Seattle in the second half came back from a 7-point deficit and ended up winning by 14 and just dominated all three phases in the second half of that game. This is a team that is feeling really good about what they are doing. And honestly, Seattle should be 4-0. They should have beat San Francisco in week one, if not for Rick Woolen not making a play in the end zone on what I called a mini Hail Mary from Brock Purdy that the tight end Jake Tongas flew in and ended up catching in front of Woolen. Seattle had a 4-0 start in front of them. They have done a lot of things to hurt themselves, and yet at the same time, they've been comfortably ahead in all three of their wins in the second half. So this is a team that I feel like is still trying to get to where they are playing at their potential. There's a lot of room for growth, and yet it does seem like they have been able to put their presence forward in all three phases for a good chunk of the season. They're just looking for more consistency in a number of aspects, but they're healthy coming into this game on a 3-game win streak, and they get to go back home, which has actually not been a good thing in the past. They had lost 7 of their previous 8 home games before they crushed the Saints. They're hoping that game gets their home mojo back. And Tampa Bay is hoping they can keep that rolling for the Seahawks, where they struggle at home. But this is going to be a really fun matchup. There's no question about it. Getting to see how Tampa Bay deals with the injuries the way they have done all season. And I'm assuming that, Mike Evans, there's no way he's playing in this game either.
Yeah, I don't see that. I think the optimistic look is that you get him back against the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football 2 weeks from now. So he's going to miss the Seahawks game. He's probably going to miss the game against the 49ers next week. So that would be 3 games that he misses with that hamstring injury. And then hopefully you get him back for the Lions game. And by then you pretty much hopefully shaken all the rust off of Chris Godwin. Ibuka still firing on all cylinders, and you get that trio before a couple weeks later when you get Jalen McMillan back, and then you have all 4 of those weapons, just in time for that playoff push. But yeah, you won't see Mike Evans in this one other than in street clothes, rocking the beautiful Bucko Bruce logo there on whatever apparel he decides to wear. This game's going to be so aesthetically pleasing in these 1976 throwbacks for both squads. I'm so glad they decided to do that.
Yeah, I am too. And look, I'm on the, I would say I'm in the minority. I like the Seahawks old threads, but I like their current ones better. So like the people that are saying we want these full time, I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. They're good for a couple times a year, in my opinion. But now, if I was a Bucs follower, I think the creamsicle, I've always loved the creamsicles. Like I would be totally fine with making those full time. But I think that is a situation where it's really cool to see both these teams in year 50 getting to play each other and wearing these original threads. I think that we could say that is one of the key matchups to watch here. We've got Bucko Bruce going against the Kingdom Royal Blues here.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
Jayden Daniels is back this week. Will it be him getting the win in a homecoming or the Chargers proving they can win without their stars? We have a big one on Sunday in SoFi. Very excited for this matchup. This is one that I had circled on the calendar even before the season as a good test for the Chargers to be able to show they could beat good teams this year. And now that they have Jayden Daniels back, it feels like it's much more of a test for them, even though, Marcus Mariota obviously held things down. But very excited for this matchup, Jayden Daniels versus Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert had a lot of hype after his rookie season. Jayden Daniels also did as well, and now they get to face off against each other. David, we don't get to talk much, man. Super excited to have you on today for this big matchup.
No, absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to it too. It'll be my second time in SoFi, but my first time in Chargers SoFi. I don't know if that really matters, but it'll be. I'm going to check it off the block as a new stadium anyway. Since it'll be the Chargers version of SoFi, and then man, Jayden Daniels homecoming. Less than 100 miles away from where he played high school football, and he's got a stadium named after him and all that stuff. So it's going to be a really exciting week for the Commanders.
Very exciting, and obviously very exciting for this crossover episode and crossover Thursdays presented by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. We talked a little bit before the show, David, that last week when Marcus Mariota had to start for Jayden Daniels, that I was like, yeah, but Jayden Daniels will definitely be back, of course, in time to play the Chargers next week. And you told me he was not going to miss this one. This is, obviously, you said it. He has a stadium named after him in California. And I'm sure you are ready to have Jayden Daniels back for this big-time matchup, too.
Yeah, look, man, Marcus Mariota does a lot of good things, right? And I think that if you look at the two games that he had to step in for Jayden while he was nursing that knee injury, you can see that this is a fully capable quarterback, NFL quarterback, veteran, sees the field really, really well. But Jayden Daniels just brings that little extra something, right? He's just a little bit extra dynamic, a little bit extra explosive, has a little bit more juice to him where it just really has a lot of fun playing the game. I mean, he's a guy that, as recent as week one, Brian Burns of the New York Giants, after the game, he said he talks too much on the field. Like, he just needs to play the game. Like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to meet you. I don't want to be your friend. Just do your job and we'll talk after the game type of thing. But that's what Jayden does, man. He just plays with that kind of an energy and does those kinds of things. From my understanding, the last game he played in the Los Angeles area was actually Arizona State against UCLA. They beat UCLA. He did suffer an injury in that game. I am a Sun Devil grad myself, and I know Jayden's, his history and his departure from Arizona State wasn't all that great, but I support Jayden Daniels because we all love talking about winning football, right? So it doesn't matter if you're a fan or not. You just want to talk winning football. So I'm excited to see him back and excited to see him go home. He might have like a quarter of the stadium, just his people and people from San Bernardino coming out to come see him play. But the good news is medically cleared by the doctors to play this weekend, full participant in practice on Wednesday. We expect him to be full Thursday and Friday as well, on his way to being active on Sunday. However, that is not officially official yet. It's just the expectation.
Yeah, I would be, shocked at this point, even if it's not totally official, if he's not out there. That'd be pretty shocking. Like you said, I don't think he thinks he's going to miss this one. I don't think he will. And it wouldn't be Chargers like if he didn't play, right? They have to get every team's best shot, even if that best shot is Jackson Dart. But I think it is also kind of a lesson the Chargers can learn from the Jayden Daniels of it all, which is basically just that if you don't protect your quarterback and you start letting him take a bunch of hits, even if he's still out there going into week 5, he won't be out there very long, right? And that's been like the hard thing the last couple of weeks. It's like, even in the Broncos game, like that was borderline godlike that Justin Herbert brought them back, the way that they were pressuring him, the amount of hits that he's taken. I think it's close to 40 hits he's taken over the past 3 weeks. And I think the test for the Chargers this week is just, can the Chargers beat a good team without their stars? Because technically speaking, Joe Alt is doubtful this week already per head coach Jim Harbaugh. I'm going to tell you, it's 0.000 something percent chance that he plays this week. There's probably a higher chance that he ends up on injured reserve this week more than he actually plays this week. So got to go into it assuming that. And I think for the Chargers going into the season last year, the Jim Harbaugh effect was kind of taking care of business against the bad teams, right? The only playoff team that they beat last year was the Broncos, who they beat twice, but they went 2-5 against every other team that made the playoffs last year. And they beat pretty much all of the easy teams except for the Cardinals that were on their schedule. Now, they just lost one of those games last week, one of those take care of business games last week, and it's because of all their guys they're missing. I mean, you're missing Rashawn Slater and Khalil Mack and Joe Alt going into this one. And I think the biggest kind of lingering question is if Mekhi Becton will play. So he was back at practice on Wednesday, which is great news for the Chargers. The Chargers also had Jamari Sawyer out practicing as their left tackle. Jamari Sawyer was their starting right guard last week as the Chargers kind of shuffled things up. But I do think that with a potential Joe Alt to IR situation brewing, and with the Chargers playing the Commanders, the Dolphins, the Vikings, and the Colts over the next 4 weeks, and a potential, Joe Alt absence, like they need to show something this week. Both teams need to bounce back. Both teams coming off of a loss, but the Chargers especially have to show, hey, we can rally with the guys that we have, and even if it's a good team, we can go beat them. Because I'll tell you this, David, if they can't beat good teams without the guys they're missing and no one really having an impending return anytime soon, you're going to go from 3-0 in the top of your division to kind of, a way different situation pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, look, these are the types of games that, when you look back on it, if you have a successful season, you look back at some of these games as kind of the catalyst for that, right? Because the silver lining to all these situations, you have the opportunities for guys that maybe don't usually get this amount of work to get out there and get this amount of work and maybe get some development and show some things that you otherwise, wouldn't have seen. For the Commanders, it's guys like Luke McCaffrey, who, came into the offseason really kind of hyped up. The coaches were really excited about his growth in year two coming into the season, but then we didn't really see that flash as much in training camp or in the preseason, and people got kind of down about him. And, he's behind Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown, Deebo Samuel at a minimum. And there were people wondering if Virginia Tech rookie receiver Jalen Lane was going to jump over Luke McCaffrey on the depth chart as well. But then Terry gets injured, Noah Brown gets injured, and obviously now you got Deebo, Jalen, and Luke all getting work and getting reps. And Luke has been able to respond with 2 games in 2 touchdowns in the last 2 games, 1 in each of the last 2 games, really being able to step up, really been able to flex his special teams ability as well. And so same thing kind of goes to the Commanders. If the Commanders are going to be this competitive team, one, the Atlanta Falcons are a team that you kind of expect them to beat. Obviously, they dropped the ball on that one, and I've been hearing from a lot of Commanders fans, this is 2 weeks in a row now. Last week against the Atlanta Falcons, after getting embarrassed by the Carolina Panthers. Now, this week, the Los Angeles Chargers, after getting embarrassed by the New York Giants, in the sense that you shouldn't lose to the New York Giants. And so it's like, this is just our luck, quote unquote, to face these 2 teams. But I keep reminding people, the Washington Commanders just got embarrassed as well. And not because the Falcons are just such a terrible team that you should never lose to them, especially on the road, but it's the way that they lost. You know what I mean? Marcus Mariota and that banged up offense, where your number 2 receiver is your number 1, and really your number 4 receiver is your number 2, they still go out there and put 27 points up on the road. You put 27 points up on the road against anybody in the league, and you should be competitive. And they only lost by 1 possession, but the side of the ball that is the healthiest, not that they're completely healthy, but the healthiest is the one that faltered. And that's the frustrating part. That's the embarrassing part. So going to Los Angeles, Daniel, if Chargers fans want to go back and watch these Commanders games, condensed version, whatever you want to do, you're going to notice 2 things. Week 1 and week 3 at home, they look like a contending team, a team that's going to do some real good damage against some teams that have vulnerabilities. Week 2 and week 4 on the road, they look like a completely different team. No energy, no juice, and just mistake after mistake after mistake. This is their 3rd shot on the road to get it figured out, why they can't play well when they're away from Northwest Stadium. And it's a great opportunity. Again, Jayden Daniels' homecoming, his return. So hopefully a little bit of that extra juice. I mean, Bobby Wagner's, he's played in SoCal, right? But Bobby Wagner's from the area, et cetera, et cetera. This is an opportunity for them to kind of get that corrected and then come back home for a Monday night football game against the Chicago Bears. We all know what happened last year against the Chicago Bears. So there's going to be plenty of juice in there. That highlight's going to be playing a million times over before week 6 Monday night football arrives. And of course, it's Monday night football. And of course, the Commanders are wearing the same black uniforms they wore on that night last year, because why not? So this is a huge opportunity for them, man. And this could be the difference between I don't want to go too deep into the rabbit hole here.
Sure.
But this could be the difference between like a 2-5 start and a 5-2 start. That's how important getting off this road game snide is for the Commanders.
Absolutely, man. And like the thing is you don't want to ever be the get right team, the team that, someone had a bad loss last week, but it's like, okay, now you get the Commanders next week where you can get back on track. And I think it's interesting because of how these teams match up against each other, that I do think it'll be a really good game based on that, even with, both teams having some key injuries. I mean, the Chargers want to feel better about their injury report. Check out the Washington Commanders injury report. And I think that's just to say everybody's dealing with it, right? And for the Chargers, it's like no one's going to feel bad for your offensive line. They're going to attack you and try to feast on that. And for the Chargers, they have to take advantage of some of the Commanders' injuries as well.